Haruka Weiser, a determined student with ambitious goals, enrolled at the University of Texas to pursue not one, but 2 degrees. However, her promising journey took a tragic turn when she mysteriously vanished after informing a friend that she was heading home from campus. The following day, Haruka failed to attend her classes, causing growing concern among the campus community. Despite extensive search efforts, a heartbreaking discovery was made, revealing the presence of a disturbed individual. Texas, once renowned for its cowboy culture and rodeos, has evolved into a modern and urban state. Nevertheless, it still cherishes its traditional roots on certain occasions. Today, our focus is on Austin, the capital city of Texas. Known for its economic prosperity, Austin hosts major offices of tech giants like Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google. The city boasts both wealth and a high-quality education system, with an impressive 52% of adults holding a bachelor's degree or higher, far surpassing the national average of 13%. Among these ambitious individuals was Haruka Weiser, an 18-year-old freshman at the University of Texas, who had embarked on the challenge of pursuing 2 bachelor's degrees. Born on June 20th, 1997, in Portland, Oregon, Haruka grew up in a loving family of 5. Her father, Thomas Weiser, her mother, Yasuo Tsunamine, her younger brother, Noboru, and her sister, Naomi, formed a close-knit American-Japanese family. To honor their heritage, all 3 children were given names that reflected both Western and Eastern influences. For instance, Haruka's full name was Haruka Juliana Tsunamine Weiser. Haruka's family had a strong bond, often embarking on tropical vacations together. This close-knit and happy upbringing provided her with the foundation she needed to succeed. Excelling in elementary school, she continued to shine in high school, particularly in math and science. Her achievements brought immense pride to her family, and she was perceived as a multi-talented and ambitious young individual. As she entered her teenage years, Haruka discovered her passion for dance and theater. At the age of 12, she pleaded with her parents to enroll her in ballet classes, and upon witnessing her enthusiasm, they granted her wish when she turned 13. This marked a significant turning point for her, as she managed to balance her studies while pursuing her true passion. Despite her busy schedule, she led a fulfilling life, surrounded by a supportive family, a circle of friends, engaging hobbies, and outstanding academic performance. Upon graduating, she chose to pursue her interests in theater and arts, alongside a pre-med program at the University of Texas, aspiring to become a doctor. Although her loved ones were saddened by her departure to the southern state, they understood her desire to forge her own path. In 2015, as she embarked on her academic journey, Haruka found herself in unfamiliar territory. However, she quickly adapted, forming new friendships and participating in university productions during her first year. Everything changed on April 4th, 2016, when Haruka, known for her dedication to her studies, failed to attend any of her classes, raising concerns among her peers and professors. Throughout the day, the concern for Haruka grew among her teachers and friends. They were unable to reach her, prompting them to take the matter seriously and report her as a missing person to the local police department. A thorough search of the surrounding area commenced, starting from her residence halls, but unsurprisingly, there was no response. Adding to the worry, her housemates couldn't confirm whether she had returned home the previous night or not. As the day progressed, there was still no sign of Haruka. Consequently, the authorities expanded their search beyond the campus. Soon after, they made a chilling discovery. Haruka's friends were able to trace the route she likely took home from class the night before. Considering the time she sent her last message, it was estimated that she would have walked this route around 9:30 p.m. after sunset. This path left her vulnerable during her journey. Normally, Haruka would inform her housemates whenever she left dance class, but worryingly, she had gone silent after that message on the night before she failed to show up for class. Behind the university alumni building, search parties found Waller Creek, a picturesque stream that spanned across the campus. After thoroughly combing the area, they returned with devastating news. The body of a young woman was discovered, showing obvious signs of trauma. She was partially clothed and wedged between two boulders at the edge of the stream, concealed by foliage. A tow rope was found tied around her neck, suggesting a possible cause of death. Additionally, authorities uncovered a pair of glasses and a hammer, both of which were suspected to be connected to the crime. From the beginning, it was assumed that the body belonged to Haruka, and unfortunately, subsequent profiling confirmed these worst fears. Based on forensic analysis, it was estimated that she had been callously dumped in the creek approximately 24 hours prior to her discovery. Haruka's fate remained a mystery, as the identity of her killer remained unknown and on the loose. In response to this alarming situation, authorities issued a warning to the university and its students, urging them to travel in groups and stay vigilant. The school conducted a thorough examination of Haruka's movements on the night she vanished, leading them to determine the probable route she would have taken home. Fortunately, this route was partially covered by surveillance cameras. Among the footage captured, one camera revealed an individual riding a red or pink women's bike, wearing a backpack. In an effort to identify this person, the footage was released to the public. Although no one came forward with a positive identification, Haruka's friends later claimed that the duffel bag seen with the suspect likely belonged to her, after viewing the surveillance footage released by the police department. Meanwhile, the Austin Fire Department made a troubling discovery. On the same night Haruka was murdered, a fire broke out at a storage facility on Medical Art Street. Upon investigation, it was determined that the fire was an act of arson. Inside one of the storage units, they found a man who had been hiding, seemingly hoping to evade detection. The items surrounding him suggested that he had been squatting there for a considerable period of time. He explained to the fire department that he had been burning things to keep warm, a common practice among homeless individuals in the area, particularly during colder months. Due to his age of only 17, he was taken to the local LifeWorks shelter for the homeless. However, upon reviewing the surveillance footage, firefighters recognized him as that guy. Detectives returned to the scene of the fire and discovered the red bike seen in the footage, along with a boot, a burned college notebook, and a black jacket. After examining the contents of the jacket's pocket, they discovered a receipt containing Haruka's information, effectively establishing a connection between her death, the fire, and the individual responsible. Undoubtedly, this compelling evidence made it nearly impossible to refute the link between Haruka and the homeless teenager. Consequently, the authorities made their way to the LifeWorks shelter in pursuit of their suspect. Surprisingly, upon their arrival, they found the young man still present. This 17-year-old individual was later identified as Mikhail Kreiner, who had previously resided in Texarkana, over 300 miles away. Initially, Mikhail faced charges of evidence tampering in relation to the fire. However, once investigators obtained a search warrant for his belongings, they stumbled upon a MacBook adorned with a Portland sticker, which unfortunately matched the description of Haruka's laptop. Armed with this newfound information, Mikhail's charges were elevated from evidence tampering to suspected murder. On April 8th, during a press conference, the Austin Police Department announced that they had apprehended a suspect and intended to charge him with first-degree murder pending further developments. Now that we are aware of Mikhail's involvement in Haruka's demise, it begs the question: who exactly was he? What led him to Austin, and what motivated his actions? Regrettably, the available information is quite limited. Mikhail, born in the year 2000, had an unnamed mother who unfortunately exhibited poor parenting skills. Instead of prioritizing her child's well-being, she was consumed by her addiction to drugs and alcohol. Tragically, this resulted in Mikhail being born with fetal alcohol syndrome, a condition that significantly impairs brain development from an early age and can even subject newborns to withdrawal symptoms. The most severe incident took place in 2009 when neighbors witnessed Mikhail's grandmother physically assaulting him in the front yard, resulting in both of his eyes swelling shut. Despite being arrested, she was later released with a $2,000 fine, claiming that she was merely disciplining him without providing any valid explanation. Despite the evident physical abuse, Mikhail insisted that his grandmother had raised him well and portrayed her as a kind-hearted woman. It is crucial to note that during his time in foster care, Mikhail was diagnosed with autism, depression, and schizophrenia. Unfortunately, none of these conditions were properly managed medically. Neighbors observed him wandering around his grandmother's property, seemingly engaged in battles with invisible individuals. While this behavior could be attributed to him playing alone or feeling lonely, it could also be indicative of symptoms associated with schizophrenia. As a teenager, his sisters mentioned that he could be affectionate and maintained a positive outlook on life. Due to his mother's destructive lifestyle and for his own safety, Mikhail was promptly removed from her care upon birth. Unfortunately, children in these unfortunate circumstances rarely have a secure, steady, or supportive future ahead of them and often face difficulties in turning their lives around. This would be no exception in Mikhail's case. Throughout his childhood, he was constantly moved between his grandmother's residence and foster homes, both of which subjected him to severe abuse. It also became apparent that, due to his birth conditions, his development was significantly hindered. For instance, he took much longer to acquire language skills and had to repeat multiple years of education. Although the specifics of his time in foster care are unknown, it is regrettably not uncommon for abuse to occur in such situations. Additionally, the police were called to his grandmother's property on multiple occasions. In fact, a photograph published in a Texas high school newspaper depicted his determination to overcome his hardships and strive for a better future. Despite being described as a generally well-behaved individual by his sisters, he had a tendency to become easily agitated. This behavior, which is often associated with autism, served as a clear indication of his condition. Unfortunately, the cycle of abuse he endured had a profound impact on him. His unsupportive grandmother instructed him to leave their home and fend for himself, leaving him homeless at the tender age of 16. In response to this devastating news, he embarked on a journey of 370 miles, walking and hitchhiking all the way to Austin. Once he arrived, he aimlessly roamed the streets, seeking refuge in halfway houses and any available shelter. When Mikhail was eventually apprehended, he remained largely silent. A psychological evaluation revealed that his intellectual capabilities were significantly below average for a 17-year-old boy. Additionally, the evaluation confirmed his previous diagnoses of autism, depression, and schizophrenia. Despite this, he was deemed mentally competent and fully aware that his actions were both morally wrong and punishable by law. In fact, his attempt to conceal the victim's body and destroy her belongings further attested to his awareness of the gravity of his actions. Through a combination of physical evidence and surveillance footage, authorities were able to reconstruct the events of April 3rd. Haruka, after leaving her dance class at 9:30 p.m., messaged a friend to inform them that she was on her way home, following her usual route between the university and her accommodation. Surveillance cameras captured Mikhail lurking near a parked van along this route. Initially, it is believed that his intention was to break into the van. However, when Haruka appeared, his focus shifted towards her. They were the only two individuals in the vicinity. The surveillance footage shows Mikhail lowering the kickstand of his bike before following her along the path leading to her residence. It remains unclear whether he made any prior advances, but what is known is that he attacked her along the way. Tragically, given his towering height of 6', she stood no chance against him. Regrettably, she was then subjected to a sexual assault before being strangled to death using the tow rope discovered on her body. Even to this day, the origin of this tow rope remains unknown. It is possible that this was a premeditated act, with the perpetrator intending to use it for some form of criminal activity, or it could simply be that he stumbled upon it along the way. Subsequently, Haruka was dragged down to the riverside by the rope and concealed between two large rocks, camouflaged with debris and foliage. Mikhail then retraced his steps, retrieved his bicycle, and departed from the scene. Later on, he could be observed walking alongside his bike, appearing fatigued or possibly injured. From this point, we can only speculate that he returned to the storage unit with Haruka's belongings in his possession. It is likely that he spent the night there and, upon realizing the gravity of his actions the following morning, decided to dispose of the evidence. This led to his encounter with the fire department, who transported him to a homeless shelter where he was subsequently arrested the very next day. The legal proceedings surrounding this case are protracted, intricate, and frustratingly indicative of a level of negligence seldom seen in homicide cases. Mikhail was formally charged with murder, robbery, attempted kidnapping, and sexual assault in June 2016, and his trial was initially scheduled for March 2017. However, this date was later canceled due to a significant issue with the DNA profiling in this case. The police department's forensic labs were closed in July 2016 due to the incompetence of their inexperienced and untrained staff. Consequently, only 20 samples could be processed each month, resulting in an extensive backlog for the police department. As a result of the considerable delay in processing, most of the DNA evidence was eventually discarded, rendering these samples inadmissible in court. Eventually, Mikhail's trial was rescheduled for July 2018, with capital murder charges looming over him. If convicted, he faced the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison, with a minimum sentence of 40 years. However, due to his age of 17, he was fortunate enough to avoid the death penalty. A jury composed of 7 women and 5 men carefully examined the evidence presented by the police, which included Haruka's clothing, personal belongings, and the tow rope. One of the most incriminating pieces of evidence was Mikhail's prescription glasses, discovered near the location where Haruka's body was found. His optometrist confirmed that these were indeed his glasses, and that his prescription was highly distinctive. The surveillance footage capturing Mikhail following Haruka was also significant, even though it could only be considered circumstantial evidence. Mikhail vehemently denied any involvement in Haruka's murder, claiming that he was actually at a hospital charging his phone at the time of her death. Although there was no evidence to support his alibi, he also stated that he stumbled upon Haruka's bags while on his way home and, being homeless, decided to check if there was anything valuable inside. Due to his financial circumstances, he chose to represent himself in court, a decision that rarely yields positive outcomes. After carefully reviewing all the evidence, the jury deliberated for over 10 hours before reaching a verdict. Despite the majority of the evidence being circumstantial, it was undeniable that Mikhail was present during Haruka's disappearance, and the campus appeared to be mostly deserted at the time of her murder. Following a lengthy and intense debate among the jury members, Mikhail was ultimately found guilty of Haruka Weiser's murder. Consequently, the judge sentenced him to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 40 years before he becomes eligible for parole. Haruka's family attended the trial, and after the verdict, her father, Thomas, expressed his thoughts. Haruka did not willingly sacrifice herself. You made that choice for her. However, her death was not in vain. We can never truly measure the number of lives she saved through the events surrounding her tragic end. She became the first victim in what you had hoped would be a series of unsolved murders. Mikhail remained silent as his sentence was announced, showing no emotion when Thomas labeled him as an aspiring serial killer. These actions, or rather lack thereof, demonstrated the troubled young man's complete absence of remorse for his crime. In March 2020, Mikhail appealed his sentence, arguing that the seizure of his belongings from the storage unit was unjustified. Unsurprisingly, his appeal was ultimately denied. He will now spend the majority of his life behind bars, at least until he reaches the age of 57. The loss of Haruka Weiser deeply impacted the community surrounding Texas University, leading to numerous vigils and memorials held in her honor. Every year, on the anniversary of her death, flowers are placed at the location where she was found. In response to her tragic murder, the school invested $13 million in enhancing campus security. This included improved and more frequent lighting, an increased presence of patrol officers, and the installation of additional surveillance cameras throughout the campus. Haruka Weiser was a beloved, talented, and charismatic young woman who embraced life to the fullest, leaving a lasting impression on everyone she encountered. In tribute to her, her closest friends got matching tattoos, a testament to the profound impact she had on their lives. The suspect, identified as Mikhail Kreiner, was arrested Thursday and booked in the Travis County Jail, Austin Police Chief Art Acevedo said at a news conference. The Texas jury found the man accused of killing a University of Texas at Austin student in 2016 guilty of capital murder on Friday. Mikael Kreiner, 20, was found guilty in the killing of student dancer Haruka Weiser, an 18-year-old freshman at the Texas State School. Weiser's body was found in a creek on the school's campus in April of that year. The jury of 7 women and 5 men discussed the case for more than 10 hours before they came to their verdict. Their decision left State District Judge David Wahlberg to sentence Kreiner to life in prison. Kreiner is not eligible for the death penalty as he was 17 at the time of the murder, but he is eligible for parole in 40 years. After the trial was cut short on Tuesday, court kicked off Wednesday with a document written by the suspect. The writing said it was for people who like stories about sexual violence. When Kreiner was arrested at the Austin shelter he was staying at in 2016, investigators found a tablet in his possession. Prosecutors and defense debated back and forth about the tablet and if it was being used by someone the night Weiser was killed. During the trial July 18th, an investigator showed the jury the document, titled Enchanting Eyes. It read, "This is only for readers who are 18 or older and like stories about sex and rape and blood and family sex and more blood." The creator of the story in the document was identified by the investigator as Mick Kreiner. Witnesses said that Kreiner has also referred to himself as Mick. Before Kreiner took the stand Wednesday, the judge told him he was giving up a valuable right to remain silent. Kreiner decided to take the stand anyway. "My mother was a horrible parent," Kreiner said, explaining that he was taken away from his mother during his childhood. He testified that Child Protective Services sent him to live with his grandmother, who then beat him. He said he was removed from her home as well. He then said he went to live with his aunt for a year or 2. Weiser's father, who was in the courtroom, had his head down through Kreiner's testimony. He later left the courtroom during his testimony. Kreiner said he started getting into a lot of fights in middle school. Kreiner said, "I hate violence, so I try to stay away from fighting." He also said he was enrolled in speech therapy and special needs classes. As he recounted his high school life, Kreiner laughed and giggled, recalling a time he was arrested for stealing a pair of boots from Walmart